Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia koutou kua hui mai nei. Mō tau koutou tautoko ki tēnei kaupapa. Tēnei te mihi. Ko Stacey Hitchcock toko ingoa, e mahi ana au e te puna umanga, tēnā koutou katoa. Well, kia ora and welcome. This is Tech Week 2023, and of course, this is Aotearoa New Zealand's biggest tech and innovation festival. This is all about providing a platform to connect, collaborate, and give our wider Taranaki community the chance to discover more about tech and innovation, because now it is even more critical to our lives and business. Just ask Sean about AI later tonight. It's blowing my mind. Scares me, actually. And I'm not even that old. So anyway, Venture Taranaki is the curator and regional partner, and we are proud to facilitate Tech Week. This is our 5th year doing this, and we're really stoked to be here tonight amongst such entrepreneurial spirit. I just want to acknowledge our Venture Taranaki board members. We have Josh Hitchcock, Roddy Bennett and David Downs, also our CE, Calvin Wright, and a huge shout out actually to the biggest star of the show, Natasha. Where is she at the back? Yeah, I know you don't like it, but she runs tonight's event. Legend. Thanks that we can actually have wine at one of our events. Thanks, Natasha. So, actually, we're all here tonight for a really special event, and you've all come for that reason, and it's about connecting the dots. I'm looking around this room. This is a really great, eclectic mix of people, business, community, government, and we've all come together for a common theme, and that is that Taranaki has the potential to be a vibrant tech sector. But what do we need to do to bring that to life, and what dots do we all collectively need to do to make this happen? How can we attract the best tech minds from around the world to live, work and invest in Taranaki? But I think even more than that, what do we do to leverage the talent that we have here in this room and in this region? What can we do to build that entrepreneur spirit here together? So on that note, I'm going to hand over to the people actually going to have the conversation tonight to make it happen. And I'm going to introduce our MC for tonight. It's our very own, even though he wasn't born in Taranaki, he's still ours, David Downs. This guy is the chair of the High Tech Trust. He's the deputy chair of Te Puna Umanga. And more than that, he's a passionate innovation advocate. So please join me in welcoming David Downs.
Ai, ana mana e reo ringa tera mā tēnā koutou, e te mana whenua o tēnei rohi, tēnā koutou ko David Downs toku ingoa. Very nice to have you all here. Thank you for coming along. I'm very pleased, as Stacey said, very pleased. I am a passionate advocate, both for this region and for technology, and we're going to talk a lot about that this evening. I'm lucky in my day job to be travel around the country and see what's going on in the technology sector in New Zealand, and it's huge. You know, as part of the High Tech Trust, we run the High Tech Awards every year. We get 1,000 people coming along to this big celebration of technology, and over the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've just seen this explosion of growth of incredible technology companies from around the country. And we've seen an amazing export revenue, growth in jobs, this weightless economy that's making a huge difference to New Zealand. And I'm really proud of what I'm seeing. And as I go around the country in my job, I get to see the different regions and how they're attacking this problem of how do you create these high-value jobs in a really interesting way? How do you structure the ecosystem to support the entrepreneurs and the founders? And I think there are patterns emerging. But I'd also controversially say to you that Taranaki's risk of being left behind. And that's why, you know, when Natasha was saying, let's do an event for Tech Week, I said, great, that's good. Tech Week is the time to do it. And it's time to actually bring a little bit of conversation to the region of what would Taranaki need to do to really embrace the opportunity that being a tech ecosystem could have. And this is not being down on Taranaki, because I think you've got some incredible opportunity here. You've got some amazing companies, you've got some incredible founders, you've got all the kind of ingredients, and we need to now connect the dots. And that's kind of the theme for tonight, is connecting the dots. I've been so impressed to see the quality of the people. Over the last couple of years, we've been doing this series called Power Up, which Natasha's been part of. Power Up is like a podcast series, and it's an event, and it's kind of an incubator helping startup and founders. And there's so much talent that exists in the wider Taranaki region, not just New Plymouth, but wider. And we can see that you could double, triple, quadruple the impact that you're having. If the ecosystem comes together and said, actually, yeah, these founders need some investment, they need some more people, they need connections into other partners, they need government help, all of the components that it takes to set up a really healthy, vibrant ecosystem. So that's kind of my controversial challenge to you tonight, is that we have all of the ingredients here, and we have some examples and some really good case studies and patterns we can follow. And now how can we as a region, and facilitated by Venture Taranaki, by the Chamber, by whoever, but how can the wider ecosystem come together to really support technology growth in Taranaki? So that's kind of the moot for tonight, if you like. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that it's possible, because I really, really do. I think that this is a region where we can see some of the best in the country. And I hope that at the High Tech Awards next year or the year after, we see lots of companies coming from this region. So tonight we're going to, the format for tonight, I should tell you, hang on, health and safety, forgot that. Bathrooms, down the back over there behind Kelvin. And in the case of emergency, please follow the venue staff. If you want to smoke, go back to 1980 when it was acceptable. Yeah, thank you very much. If you're worried about what happened in the budget today, don't be. It was actually, pretty, well, it depends. I was saying there's always two schools of thought when it comes to the budget, and I watched it today. Some people say there wasn't enough. Other people say there was too much. But the good news, talking about the tech sector, is that there were actually some interesting things in that budget for the technology sector. There was some interesting stuff to do with gaming, which is a big industry in New Zealand. If you're thinking about an industry that you could attract to this region, gaming would be a really good one. There was some good stuff to do with robotics and horticulture, which I saw Pam earlier. Pam and I worked a year or two ago on this idea of setting up a horticultural technology hub in New Zealand. And there was some good stuff as well in terms of some of the advanced sciences as well. So New Zealand really has started to realise that we need to lean into being a kind of a knowledge economy and a weightless economy. And a region like Taranaki can be at the heart of that. So yeah, some good stuff going on. So the format for this evening. Right, we've got an amazing guest speaker I'm going to introduce here in a moment. And then we're going to have a couple of panel sessions as well. And the two panel sessions are with some a diversity of people from across the region to discuss a couple of topics. And while they're going to discuss it, we've all got the opportunity for you to ask questions as well. So the first panel is about growing, nurturing, supporting and inspiring our own tech talent. So I'll talk more about that when we get there, but that'll be an opportunity to really be thinking about the talent. When you grow technology businesses, you need three things. You need a founder with a crazy idea. You need talent, because they need people to work with, and you need money. And as I say, you've got all the components of that stuff there. And then underneath that, you have all the ancillary businesses and government agencies like the one I'm part of, and VT and things like that. But essentially, those are the ingredients for success. So the first one is around technology talent. The second one is around attracting tech talent and investment, and how you remove the roadblocks to that. Again, a key thing when you think about how to unlock the potential of this region. So those two panels will be separated by a bit of a break in the middle. So we'll have our guest speaker, then a panel, then a bit of a break, then another panel. And hopefully by the end of it, what we really want is that you go away not just thinking, oh, that was an interesting conversation, what a nice evening, but you go away thinking, actually, we could do this. We could, as a region, connect. If we got this person and that person in a room, if we agreed that we're going to pilot something, then we can actually kick off this tech ecosystem here in this region. That's what we hope. Ka pai. All right. As I mentioned, one of the joys I have in my life is spending a hell of a lot of time on planes going around the country. And when I do that, I'm in my day job, I work for the government in trade and export. And I get to see different regions. And over the last few years, I've been really impressed with Queenstown and the Queenstown Lake region, and the work that they've been doing to reinvent or think things differently about what the world thinks of Queenstown. Now, we know Queenstown is an incredible tourist destination. It's blessed with probably the second nicest mountains in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And so they're lucky from that point of view. But they also realise they can't just rely on tourism, and they've got to think differently about the types of industries that they want to grow in that region. And they have done a lot of work thinking about the ecosystem of how to grow the technology businesses that exist there. And so I asked a friend and I think a leader from that sector to come and give her reflections. And so I'll just introduce our first guest speaker tonight. So Olivia Wensley was the CEO of Startup Queenstown, which was a really innovative model. I'm sure she's going to talk about that. She's also been a lawyer. She's been a business advocate. She's run businesses herself many times. She has a really great perspective, and she's actually now getting into the world of venture capital. So she's also got that mindset of investment. So everyone, please welcome Olivia Wensley.
Thanks so much, David. It's such an honour to be here. Taranaki has a special place in my heart for a few reasons. First of all, it's where my family originally came to New Zealand in 1842, and my great times for grandmother's wedding dress is just upstairs, so that's been really special. So they were the first Pākehā couple to marry in Taranaki, and my many times great-grandfather was the first Pākehā child to be born here. So it's where it all began for my family. So it's so lovely to be in the place just there where they arrived. So I have a deep feeling a connection to this exact spot. Secondly, it's special because Taranaki is where I got into tech. So I used to be a lawyer, and I worked in banking. I was in Singapore, loved it over there, but I wanted to move back to New Zealand for lifestyle reasons. I continued working in law here, but what I have always been really passionate about is tech. And I had an opportunity to work for a Taranaki legal tech company, and so I grabbed that opportunity, and I just really sort of saw the opportunity there for a lot of people to get into tech, and that you don't actually have to be technological to work in the tech industry. So I want to talk a bit about sort of the opportunities for the regions when it comes to tech. So a bit of history about the journey that Queenstown's been on. So we first saw the opportunity for Queenstown becoming a tech destination back in 2014 when there was a Gigatown competition. Can anyone remember Gigatown? We're competing for the amazing prize of a gigabit speed internet, and which is going to change the world. So we were fighting with other regions to try and get this ultra-fast internet, and it was going to be a game changer. We ended up losing to Dunedin. And to be fair, it really did foster an amazing ecosystem there in Dunedin, and it was the foundations of the gaming industry, and now there's code down there, so it worked. So there was a group of us that continued to persevere and see the opportunity, and the amount of times I've been told it will never be a tech destination. You're dreaming, it's never going to happen. And it's happening. It's well and truly happening. So it really, part of the catalyst, there's been a lot of sort of efforts, but it was consolidated by the foundation of Startup Queenstown Lakes in 2018. So at this stage, we had a set of a founding CEO and a board, and I was really lucky enough to be shoulder tapped to take over the reins in 2020. So February 2020 is when I started as the CEO of Startup Queenstown Lakes. 1 week later, COVID hit. So we went from, as an organisation, suddenly we went from being the sort of startup supporting ecosystem to being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And what I mean by that is suddenly in town, every business became a startup. So we tried to do our bit in terms of supporting businesses and getting back to basics and doing startup methodology, because you can apply it to businesses that need to restructure. So what we did during lockdown is we hosted a lot of online webinars and talking about all kinds of stuff, getting experts along on how to innovate, how to so that was really a baptism of fire. But it made something very clear became apparent, was that our economy needed to diversify away from tourism. So it was the worst case scenario. The region has had all its eggs in one basket, and tourism's been the golden goose, but the golden goose was cooked over COVID. So we had to think differently. So that's when it was a silver lining in a lot of ways, because it emphasised the reasons why we need to diversify and why tech is an amazing opportunity for the regions in New Zealand. So I'm a real passionate campaigner for not just Queenstown, but for all regions to be developing tech ecosystems, because what we saw post-COVID is a distribution of people. And so I'm sure you've seen the same here, is that people have realised that in an age of working remotely, you can work anywhere, so why not live somewhere amazing? Right, we'll just go to the next slide, please. So here are some of the ingredients of a thriving ecosystem. So Startup Queenstown Lakes was essentially a startup itself when I took the reins. So we did a lot of trial and error, and it was really fun in a lot of ways to sort of try a lot of different things and see what worked. So the core foundations of a thriving ecosystem is we've got service providers who provide sponsorship, they support the founders, and they're great guest speakers for events. We've got mentors, so there's a lot of talent that I know in this region, very experienced business people. So they're great to support founders, to provide governance, and also their stories are fantastic. There's the investors, so there's angel networks, holding investor workshops, so building that investor capability is very important, and pitch nights. It's a great opportunity to get people together. Founders are another core foundation of a thriving ecosystem. So we found that hosting founders' dinners, having a lot of collaboration, sort of cooperation instead of competition, and networking was really, really key. But what connects the dots is having a central role where you've got the activator, the catalyst. And so that's a really, really key and important thing to getting to drawing all the connections together. So my role was basically to just connect people all day, every day, and that's where you get amazing things happening. That's how you can truly catalyse innovation in the region. Okay. So the board and I were really clear on setting a vision on where we want to be in 10 years. So this is the example that we gave for Queenstown, but we're focused on having an innovative, vibrant and diverse community that embraces technology and entrepreneurship and focuses on zero-weight exports in the form of IP. So having that vision really clear and crystallised was very, very helpful, and we'd revisit it every year so that we made sure that that was where we're heading as a community. So what's really important is to understand the ecosystem, find out who's here. I was amazed to uncover the talent and the people that were in the region. It was just extraordinary, the people that were coming to town and connecting them. And so when you understand who's here and you map it out, then you can really get amazing things going. So this was the pipeline that I've mocked up of sort of what we did as Startup Queenstown Lakes, being that sort of central activator. So it was a pipeline, really. We sort of mapped out the journey of our community. So we found that a lot of people were at the idea stage, and they'd come along to these events. They had an idea, and it was really important to inspire and get them sort of taking it seriously and mapping it out. So we'd host events with founders sharing their story, and it was all about inspiration. Next, we'd have programs. So the first one, Kickstart, that was about getting that idea onto paper. And that's when you can really activate people. As soon as they put an idea on paper, it can really get action going. The next stage that we put was Liftoff, which is that next, you've got your business plan, and now how do you actually launch? So that was a program that we built. And then when the founders come down the pipeline, they get more sophisticated. We talk to them about investment, how to become investment ready. So then what we want to see is founders coming out the bottom of the pipeline, and then they go back to the top in terms of mentoring, supporting, sharing that knowledge, or founding another company. So it's sort of this, that's sort of the pattern that we saw. Another thing that's really important is how to map the ecosystem. So this was something that was actually really hard. How do you map what's going on? Because it's quite hard to quantify when you can see action, but you don't know actually what is happening, so to be able to illustrate it. So I found this was quite good to actually map out the clusters that we had. So I divided it by industry, whether it was a product or service, and sort of this is one of the maps that I made. It's sort of indicative. It's not every logo of everyone, but it was just a sort of idea. So the size of the squares relate to the number of companies in that industry. So yeah, so we actually we thought that there'd be a lot of hospitality and tourism companies, but we actually found it was quite an even spread. So that was really interesting. So we sort of went down the path of seeing if we could identify clusters, and there were clusters, but it was quite surprising. So we had like food, fibre, agri-tech was quite a dominant cluster, so that's the big blue square there. So it was surprising mapping who's actually here and doing what, and it's also really surprising because we had like an electric motorbike manufacturer, just random stuff that you wouldn't pick. So that's a really interesting exercise to do. So when you know who's here and what's going on, you can shape the offerings. So basically, what we did at Startup Queenstown Lakes is we had 4 key areas that we focused on. So we focused on incubating founders, so that's with those programs of getting an idea onto paper and then getting them to launch. We would focus on events of just getting curious people in the community to come along and get inspired. We would focus on investors and building investor capability because that's a really important part of the puzzle. And finally, we focused on fostering high-growth startups. So we learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work so well. So what we found was having fresh, interesting events. So when I took the reins, we had a regular thing called Coffee Jam. And it was kind of a rip-off of Christchurch's Coffee and Jam, but we dropped the and, I don't know why. But we'd go along to these things, and like sometimes only 5 people would come. It was a coffee morning, and it was kind of... So we tried a lot of different things, and we found out something that works really well, and that is free alcohol. So we did, like tonight, we did the drinks vouchers, and people would come. So if you have it in the evening and you've got alcohol, people will come. So that's how we got our best events. We also did founders' dinners, which was sort of more, it was a smaller group, so sort of like the founders that are raising capital, the kind of investable level. And that was really good because it was building that community, because it can be a really lonely journey as a founder. And so it was really, really important to sort of get that collaboration going. So having these dinners regularly was also really effective. And then we also did the educational sessions that I talked about, that sort of, the programming to get people off the ledge and actually taking the jump into entrepreneurship. Okay. So here's some example of events that we did. So we did a wide variety. We tried so many things. So we found what was really effective is we'd do the entrepreneur talks, so sort of sharing the journey. But we'd also get people from out of town, interesting people along. One of the most popular ones was we did VR and NFTs back when even NFTs were a thing. Remember that crazy time? It was really interesting getting these different people along and hearing their journeys, because it's really inspiring. We partnered with regional business partners, with VCs. We did all kinds of stuff with whoever was coming through town, and people quite liked the opportunity to come through Queenstown, so we'd really sort of grab them when they were there. So that was, so we tried a lot of different things, but we found that the formula of sharing founder events with alcohol was a great combo. Okay. So another thing that works is inclusivity. The first event that we had held, which I didn't organise, but I went along to as my first, when I took over the reins, It was a founders' dinner, and it was me and 14 guys. And I was like, this has to change. This can't be possible that we've got 100% male founders here. I do not believe this. So what happened is we actually put the messaging and made it clearer that women can be in tech and that you're welcome to come along, even if you're not a founder or technical, come and learn. And with really intentional messaging and measuring the metrics of gender of attendees, gender of people who were raising capital, sort of really measuring everything to make sure that we were improving. And if you measure it, you can improve it. And it was quite exceptional to see that we went from literally 100% guys to, at the height of COVID, we had in our program 75% women. So it was huge. And the reason for that was that women were disproportionately affected by COVID. So they lost their jobs more, and they came into our programs to start their idea. So that was awesome. It was so cool to see. So I like to think that we just sort of really leveled the playing field a bit and just made that message clear that everybody is welcome here. Another thing that was really effective is sharing success stories. So it was super inspirational. We worked with NZ Entrepreneur magazine to get published content for founders. So that was a really valuable thing for them to do, because it was basically paid for PR, and then you could share the content. So we could use content, and it was, this double boost to sort of getting attention for our region, but also like boosting the company's profile. So it was this win-win. So we actually paid for some of their content, which was worth every dollar. LinkedIn was an excellent platform, is an excellent platform for sharing success stories and sharing wins from the region. And also just local media as well. So journalists need stories. So they love it when you feed them some interesting stories about cool tech that's going on. So what happens is when you're in the media and you're getting the stories out there, it has this, it's sort of like you put the beacon up for we're doing things, and then more people come out of the woodwork. So literally every time we had a piece in the media, someone else would come out and say, oh yeah, I've just come here from Silicon Valley, I'm doing this, can I meet you, who's here? And so it was quite exceptional seeing all these really interesting people that some of them had lived there for like 20 years and no one knew they were there. So the more you get the message out there, the more people will get involved. So building that credibility is really important sort of on the national stage, so getting coverage of your success story. So when I started working for the tech company here in Taranaki, I had no idea how cool it was here. So I grew up in the Waikato, but I hadn't visited here. I was blown away. I was like, this place is so livable. The restaurants, the lifestyle, incredible. So I seriously looked at moving here. My husband's a hardcore Southern man, so he wouldn't have a bar of it. But I would have moved here in a heartbeat. So there are people that would, and as lifestyle becomes more and more important, it's really important to share sort of what makes you guys great. And I really admire what the EDA does here. I actually ran for mayor last year in Queenstown, and I used it as an example of what we need down there as an EDA. We have an EDA in council, and it doesn't work. I think it's amazing to have that external group of what you're doing. So I really admire the work that's been done, and so I use that as an example all the time during my campaign. I was like, we need this. Right, we'll just go to the next slide. Yes. So these are some of the educational programs that we did. So what we did, because in Queenstown we covered Wanaka as well, and that region, we actually covered Glenorchy, Kingston, the whole central Otago region actually, because we partnered up with the CODC as well. So in-person didn't always work. So what we did is we actually did a hybrid. So we did a mix of online classes, we'd do in-person accountability sessions, and so everything was actually a hybrid for most of our offerings. That worked really well. because people could also catch up on sessions because they were recorded and accessible online. So we built an online educational platform, which was really cool. Something else that was effective is having drop-in sessions. So we'd do it once a month and have a business coach, and we'd just have online bookings and people can drop in and talk about whatever they want to with their business. So that was a really effective and popular thing. We also worked with the Flying Kiwi Angels to have drop-in clinics with them as well. And what has been an amazing catalyst, actually, is having a centre for that collaboration and innovation. And there's been co-working spaces getting set up in Queenstown and Wanaka, in particular the Mountain Club, which has 2 venues, and it has been a huge catalyser because it's all about that connectivity, and having that home for community has been really, really powerful. So yes, that's been a real game changer. It's really helped build that sense of community. Some of the things that have been a bit harder, we got the Mainland Angel investors set up back in 2020, and it's been a slow burn. So that's been, it's been quite, figuring out what works. We know that there's a great community of investors in Queenstown and some wonderful business people, but getting them engaged and involved has been quite tricky. But the organisation's starting to sort of hit its stride now and regularly hosting pitch nights. So that's been a harder thing to get right, but it seems to be on the right path now, so that's great. Another thing that was a bit hard as well is Startup Weekend. So it was, it takes a lot of resources, especially when you're working for a charitable trust, and it's all hands on deck, and it can be an amazing weekend, but it's also, it can be quite challenging. So we decided not to do it yearly. We'd do it every other year. So that was a great event, but it's also really full on. So so we sort of found that every second year was the right balance. But it's actually events that are the important thing. So this is where the magic happens. This is where you can see the collaboration and community happening. So events like this, it's just amazing to see people in the room talking and sharing ideas and collaborating. That's how people meet their co-founders, their mentors, their investors. So that's what is the most powerful thing to do as a region, is to get people in a room and just get people talking and meeting each other. And that's, it really, you just see it developing in front of your eyes. So that's what I call the magic. Great. Well, thanks so much for having me. And great to be here and sort of see. I totally agree with David that there's all the foundations of a tech ecosystem here, and it's really great to be here and share the learnings. And I look forward to seeing what happens over the next few years. Thank you.
It's beautiful. Olivia neglected to mention a couple of things. Firstly, that if she set up an EDA, she was going to ask me to come and run it for her, which would have been cool. And the reason was because the first time we met, she thought I was Christopher Luxon. It's now a bit of a joke between us. She keeps texting me photos of Christopher Luxon going, were you on TV again? Anyway. Awesome. Thank you so much, Olivia. That was really cool. And I hope you get, that feeling that I do when I heard that stuff, what's going on there. And similar things are being replicated in other regions, but not with that clarity, actually. I hope, we could do this here. We really could. And speaking of the magic of getting people together to talk about things, we're going to have a panel now. So I'm going to invite our first panel onto the stage. Come on up while I'm talking about this. So our first panel, we have Hemi Coates from New Plymouth Boys High School. We have Jaden Clark from Easy Soul. We have Simon Singh from Learn and Me. We have Paul Verek from I Promise. Amelia Rentozis from Hiringa, and Neve Given from WNT Ventures. Please give them a big hand as they come into stage. Thank you. All right, so this is a discussion. I'll facilitate. I'll keep us on time because I know we've got a bit of food coming up in about 15, 20 minutes. And we're going to talk about growing, nurturing, supporting, inspiring our tech talent. And I want to start off by maybe throwing to Hemi, because, you know, who represent the youth a little bit. Does the word tech in itself scary? Does that word kind of put people off? You know, when we talk about tech talent, does it inspire you to want to get into it?
The word tech. In terms of youth, I think they will want to be involved in tech. I don't think they understand what it actually is in reality. I think they all, I can speak for the boys at my school anyway, they all just want to play games. I'm being honest, they're obsessed with gaming, and they think when they take time with digital media teacher at West High School, and also teach business studies, and so a lot of them kind of come in thinking that we're just going to be putting games and playing games. So it's just really changing that mindset for them, I think, and kind of opening them up to the idea of it being what it actually is.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for being a teacher too, by the way. Critical part of it. I'll go down the thing here. Maybe actually, as you talk, maybe just give a quick introduction to who you are as well. Do you want to pick up that question next? Have you got a mic? Oh, yeah. Right, tech. You know, what is the image of that sector?
Yeah, sure. Hello.
Yeah.
My name's Paul Berich. And yeah, I mean, tech for me, as Hemi said, it is different for different people depending on whether you're a student or looking to get into the workforce. I think it doesn't need to be scary, I think it doesn't need to be difficult, it doesn't need to be hard. There's so many opportunities, and I think we all owe it to ourselves and people trying to get into tech to make it really accessible and available and welcoming, no different than the inclusivity talk that part of the talk that Olivia said. So I think we've got to make it inviting, exciting and inspirational, because that's what it is.
Yeah. Nice one.
Hi, I'm Simon. Yep, that works. Hi, I'm Simon. I've had the fortune of being on both sides of the fence when it comes to these things. I'm an educator with LearnMe, which is one of our EdTech companies, and also being a CEO of IT companies. Completely agree. I think that from the technology side of things, the word tech can be pretty daunting. Yesterday we were in another tech week event and we were talking about it. It was all experts, and we were having more of a venting session around how tech can be overwhelming for customers and clients. So definitely, and for our youth, it's been a big issue, especially in our region where we've got next to nothing in terms of pathways.
Thank you. Jane, I saw you last year doing the Power Up. I think you were part of that team. So you're a founder. So tell us from a founder point of view, you know, technology, how does it attract you?
Yeah, I mean, from a founder's point of view, and also a young person in Mr. Coates' class, or Hemi's class.
Mr. Coates, we always call him Mr. Coates.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Having my ex-headmaster and ex-teacher here is a bit weird, but look, as Hemi said, for young people, technology, a lot of it is about gaming. People think of it like that. But I think what was really powerful, even when I went through school, is showing the possibilities outside of gaming, what you can make, what you can design, how you can start a business with that. And going through Young Enterprise really opened up my eyes in terms of the possibilities with technology. In it being a scary term, maybe for more older generations who didn't grow up with it.
Yeah.
Growing up with it has really kind of shaped my perspective on what technology is and what I can do with it.
Yeah, nice one. Amelia, what do you think?
I guess is this on?
Yeah.
I'll speak from an older generation. I'm a millennial, so I think that probably covers
I think older generation is a relative term.
Yeah, indeed. No, but for me, I think tech kind of came with connotations of being something that I just really didn't understand.
Yeah.
Personal experiences, I came from 12 years in oil and gas background where the technology that we used there was practically as old as the fossils that we mined. And I really wanted to move into new energy and really thought that in order to do that, I'd have to completely retrain.
Yeah.
I was looking at MBAs, I was looking at, a bunch of different sort of qualifications. And in reality, the transition from sort of old to new tech or traditional energy to new energy, for example, it wasn't really as daunting as I thought it was. So I think really just unveiling kind of what that looks like and really putting it out there to say, hey, this isn't something that's really sort of scary or different, is a good idea.
Nice one. Neve, hang on, there's something going wrong here. You two are sharing a microphone, that's not right. That's not inclusive, is it?
Being collaborative.
Okay, good. Okay, you're collaborating, that's good.
Yeah, so I'm Neve, I'm with WNT Ventures, and I'm in tech, but we're in deep tech is what we talk about, just a bit, everyone goes, well, what's that? And I guess my biggest thing is that I'm actually not an engineer, I'm not a scientist, and what we invest in companies that are backed in engineering and science, but I'm a business background, so, but I'm just drawn to tech, and I think it's a lot to do with the exposure that I got to it, and that's what I feel, instead of us talking about tech as a concept, it's talking about the rocket labs and the Canva and different things like that, and people can relate to the tools that they use that is that tech, and kind of taking away the, it being a complex sort of thing to it being what we deal with on a day-to-day basis is how we kind of can help.
Nice, that's good. So we're sort of demystifying as we're talking, which is good. And maybe, as you say, the language needs to change a little bit. One of the questions I've got, when you think about a region like Taranaki, and I originally was born in Wanganui, so not that far away from here. I've still got the same maunga as you guys, just a different view of it. But one of the things that we learned in 1980 Wanganui is that if you wanted to do something, you had to leave. And then maybe you'd come back when you were 40, 50, when you've got your kids. And I think Olivia sort of made the point that that's changed, like these are now places to live and work and connect remotely. And I'm going to go to you, Jaden, because you represent the younger community. What are your peers and friends thinking about when they think about their future? Are they thinking about they have to leave, or do they think about they've got options now that will allow them to grow their careers here?
I think at the moment, many of my friends, even my co-founder Ashkan, we both went to, say, Auckland University and kind of left, just because that education opportunity wasn't really here in terms of technology. I think what the services and stuff that we got through Venture Taranaki and stuff is really powerful here. So coming back here is definitely an option, just because of how supportive the community was around here. But I think initially a lot of people leave. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Hemi, you've got this in your classroom. You were talking to kids about their careers. What do we need to do as a region, I suppose, to sort of expand that possibility of getting them to come back earlier or stay around longer, or think about it not just as gaming but as a career?
Yeah, so I'll take myself as an example, I guess. I'm not from here, but we moved here when we had kids because it's amazing. It's a brilliant place here, and it's awesome to bring up kids here. So speaking from a personal point of view, we moved here because it's just amazing here.
Yeah.
Surf, schools, everything's really good.
Did you just say schools?
Schools are
it was a bit self-serving, but okay, yeah, because schools, best school. Especially business studies at New Plymouth Boys High, that's all right, yeah.
Forgot the question.
I guess it's that experience that you've had. You chose to come here and make your life and a career and a family here, and how do we make sure that we can do that with more people?
I think maybe even showing that in terms of technology, like I was saying before, with the schools and the connection the schools have with industry, I think that would be awesome. Like me personally, I would love to take my business studies classes out and visiting all of these different businesses and tech startups and established tech businesses that are here, and actually showing them that there is a pathway here and that there's something that they can come back to here, and not just I talk to a lot of boys about this and they want to leave, all right? They don't realise that what actually is here.
Yeah. Well, that's what we can connect one dot right now, because that is a brilliant idea. Amelia, putting you on the spot, you're in Headinga, one of New Zealand's high-tech companies. and you're here, and you've got a bunch of young men who want to learn about high tech. I mean, maybe that's a dot we could connect.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a dot that I think we work quite hard on trying to connect. Even at primary school level, I send my kids to school at least once a week and hitting a merch. And they can speak the hydrogen language, which is great, although on my Mother's Day card they put HD instead of H2, but she's 8, so I'll let it fly. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot more engagement with schools is great. We engage a lot with universities, but I travel up to Auckland or to Wellington or Christchurch and talk to students there, and I think, yeah, really seeding it early is probably quite key, just so that everyone can see the opportunities.
Nice one. Simon, what do you think? You've set up business, you said you've been on both sides of it. What do you think we need to be doing to encourage that talent?
Yeah, we had sort of about 8 IT businesses in town we have at the moment. And yeah, completely agree. We were struggling with finding talent, and we had to really set up our own NZQA PTE to start teaching students, to give them a pathway, because there was no other pathway available. So we said that we've got 60-odd students at the moment across New Plymouth and Hawera. So yeah, so hopefully the talent shortage we can help out with.
That's brilliant. And are there companies you're working with that will provide the roles that they can go into? One of the challenges I see nationally is tech companies say they need talent, PTEs or other training institutes create them, but then the companies go, but they need 5 years experience, and there's this gap.
Exactly. So I think there is a bit of work that needs to be done on both sides. Us being industry, IT industry is very, very impatient. We want things done yesterday. Yeah. And so you end up with, you never teach a junior person how to become an intermediate person. You're always just going, oh, I need it today, so I'll just hire it from outside. And I think that's something we need to focus on more. But also, the education institutions also need to change how they teach. So for us, all our training is practical based. Yeah. And they work on real world projects, they work with companies. We just got PowerCo as one of our apprenticeship and internship providers. Yeah. We hire, so as we have 7 other companies, I've hired 12 staff in the last 18 months from LearnMe. So, yeah. Wow,
and that's fantastic. Well done.
Yeah, so it helped us grow. Yeah. We were 8 of us, now it's 30 of us from 2018 to 2023. Yeah.
Paul, what about you? Are you seeing this sort of need for talent?
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit chicken and egg as well. I think you need the opportunities for the young people as well. And so while we've got many great companies here in Taranaki, we just need more. And the more companies we've got, the more opportunities that we've got, and the more that we can offer a pathway directly out of university or out of other colleges. So I think, yeah, what we've got is a great start, but if we can get bigger and bolder, and we can attract more talent.
Neve, you see this from lots of perspectives, because you know WNT Ventures is a venture capital firm. You've got portfolio companies around the country. Do you see the same pattern emerging in other places? And what's going well?
Yeah, I guess from the portfolio perspective, and that is, it's getting talent is really hard, and quite often we find engineers and scientists with a great idea, but that need that commercial element as well to go alongside it. And so we're also very involved in wanting more and more programs, something like Power Up, so that people can get an opportunity to test their business model, work through it. Maybe it's not the right one for them that time, but they learn the skills that then they can apply in that next business, or meet a co-founder for another business that they can do. So a lot of what the incubators do, we see as really valuable, and it creates a momentum in an ecosystem as well, just bringing people together. Like Olivia was saying, a lot of it is about meeting people and networking and hearing their stories. So I think that's a way that for trying to encourage more and more talent, people coming into this sector, it's about creating more events and more inclusivity. Yeah.
And do you, while the microphone's down your end of the room, the diversity element that Olivia talked about, that really being conscious and thoughtful about encouraging, people from different walks of life, genders, ethnicities, everyone. How have you seen, what could we be doing, I suppose, to encourage that diversity into the sector as well?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one, because I've just come from a few events up in Auckland, and there's some of them, the diversity definitely wasn't there. There's more that we definitely need to do. But actually, something that I found really encouraging was, because I was part of helping to run the first Power Up program here 3 years ago, and even in that, I saw quite a good diversity in the group, which I saw was a real promising angle there. But yeah, I don't have an answer for the diversity one. It's one that we strive to improve all the time, and I think it's about being out there. While I'm on stage here, it's showing that there's lots of different options.
I think it's a lot of it has to happen right back in the early stages of school, and showcasing and modelling and making sure that the examples you're using are, allowing people to see that there is different ways of different types of people that can go into the sector. I'm going to let the questions come from the audience. Has anyone out here got a burning question? Otherwise, I'll keep going with my questions. There's one over here from this gentleman here.
Could we create the map of the technology and industries as done in Queenstown by next month?
I'm going to look, where's the Venture Taranaki team? That's the sort of task that they would like to take on, I'm sure. Olivia, how long did that sort of exercise take? A long time. Yeah. 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 So Olivia's saying it takes a while because you've got to think about how you're going to structure the data, what are the sectors, etc. But then the best comment of the night was Kelvin, the CEO of Venture Taranaki, saying, yes, done, go. Next month begins in 13 days, Kelvin, so that'll be good. It's a bloody good start, eh? I mean, that was a really practical way to get things started.
Just from the comments that come out of the panel, it's all very pragmatic and looking at the problem at hand, solutions, etc. It's like a great place. How do you tell in the aspirational drink and draw them into that space, and actually at that point, the magic, I think Olivia said, takes place. I can hear all that.
Yeah.
Is that aspirational one? How do you tap into that? What's your thoughts? Maybe from Hemi first would be great.
Yeah, the aspiration, but it's a really good point. Like we need to think tactical, and you need to think sort of aspirational at the same time. How do we create that kind of? You as someone who's like, I've just got in my mind that movie with Robin Williams when you're at the front of the classroom, standing on a table, inspiring your class. How do you do it, Hemi?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the $1 million question. How do you inspire the youth to aim way up here? And I think it is by giving them really, really clear, concise examples of what is possible. And I was just thinking before, actually even feeding back to the education industry what you want as well, and so we can then tailor what we're doing to try and suit what the reality of the tech industry actually is now, because I'm a teacher in a classroom right now with a bunch of students around computers, and I can teach them what I think the industry is, but if I don't have a really clear picture about what it is, then I might be doing the wrong thing. So actually just that communication between even the educators like us and the industry would be great in order for us to try and inspire and have that kind of aspirational pitch to the students. Yeah.
I think it's a good question to go along the panel though. Maybe Paul, what do you think? How do we inspire?
Yeah, I think storytelling is really powerful, and I think there's so many people in Taranaki who have done amazing things that people wouldn't even know. There's people in this room that I know have done some things which many people in the world haven't achieved, and we need to hear more about those stories and need to show people that it is possible, because lots of people have got ideas, but it's getting it off the ground and being inspired to do that, that's important.
Nice. Simon?
Yeah, very much the same. I think storytelling and having role models. Also showing some new tech, and not just talk about the same old programming and hardware and all of that sort of stuff. We need to talk new stuff.
I think it's a really good point, which actually a little bit, in my experience, goes to the diversity point, because if you talk about tech being some computer programmer sitting at a screen for hours on end, you're missing on design, graphics, art, music, all the sorts of other components of creative industries.
Yeah, like diversity is one of the big ones. I think from in the past, we've actually used like maths. You need to know maths, otherwise you can't get into IT. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
as far away from truth as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that when we say those things, it actually eliminates a lot of. So it will eliminate women and Māori and all of those sort of things, because you're putting them in a box.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to change. And for that, us as tech leaders or tech industry need to go through and help the schools out to explain to them it's not the case anymore.
Great. Jaden, what inspired you, apart from clearly Mr. Clark? But
yeah, exactly. I think what inspired me was firstly the opportunities I had when I was young, starting especially during primary school. The kind of tech opportunities I had was awesome, but also showing that you can sort of learn and do anything you want to. I think YouTube's a great example of that. You can learn anything you want to, especially in technology with programming and things like that. I mean, I taught that to myself, most of it. And that's simply because I have access to that. And people show me that you can do that yourself, especially during primary school when I had a class and we were designing, we had to make like a song using code. And the teacher that was teaching us showed us how to research and kind of pave our own way through it. So showing what we can do by ourselves was inspiring.
Nice one. Amelia, what about you? What's the inspiration there?
I think we inspire by giving people problems to solve. I think at the heart of it, people and companies are purpose-driven. So if we're able to say, hey, here are the suite of issues that we've got, then that's sort of inspiring for people to go out and say, this is where I can actually add value or make change. And I think specifically for Taranaki, I mean, globally, we're facing the biggest crisis that we've ever faced as a society, which is global warming. Taranaki is the biggest energy hub in the country. Like, those are pretty well matched in terms of where we can solve like the biggest problem in the world right now. So without giving kids anxiety, I feel like we should be laying that out on the table and saying, hey, this is your future, so come and take it.
Come and help solve the problems. Agree. Neve, inspiration?
Well, it's been lots of great ideas here. I think one of the ones that we quite often talk about is that whole failing forward, giving people the opportunity to think big, and it's okay if it doesn't work, and that learn from it and move on. And so it's sort of giving people that bandwidth to let themselves think big, and it's okay if it doesn't work out, because the next thing you never know what might happen there. So
brilliant. Look, I'm aware the food's come out, and we want to give you a good time for networking, sort of good 20 minutes or so break. So can you please join with me and thank the panel, first of all, for their wisdom and support. And please do use this break time to network and join a few dots. We've already got a couple going on, and I'm just going to ask Natasha to do a karakia mo te kai. Tina. Taiki. Great, we'll be back at 7:25 for the next panel. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Who you with? 'Cause I'm gonna have some tonight. I'm gonna get party. I'm gonna be sure. Gonna do all the things that appeal to me. I'll do it all. Just to make it all easy, gonna set it off slow, and then everything gonna take me through it all, making it easy, 'cause I don't wanna be alone. Baby, wrap it up, throw it all in the papers, wrap it up, gonna need it at the clubs tonight. Who you with? 'Cause I'm gonna have some tonight. Wrap it up. And if you do me a favor, wrap it up, I'll pick you up and it'll be so nice. Who you with? just to burn it all clear. And then I'll be spinning out around Hood Street. Nobody's gonna care. You know you make me all jelly when you do me like that. Now I'm feeling all the things that I thought I would. I might as well share, making it easy. 'Cause I don't wanna be alone, baby. Wrap it up, throw it all in the papers. Wrap it up, gonna need it at the clubs tonight. Who are you with? Who are you with? 'Cause I'm gonna have some tonight. Wrap it up, and if you do me a favor, wrap it up, I'll pick you up and it'll be so nice. Who are you with? Who are you with? 'Cause I'm gonna have some tonight. Wrap it up, throw it all in the papers. Wrap it up, gonna need it at the clubs tonight. Who are you with? Who are you with? 'Cause I'm gonna have some tonight. Wrap it up, and if you do me a favor, wrap it up, I'll pick you up and it'll be so nice. Who are you with? Who are you with? 'Cause I'm gonna have some tonight. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na.
that's the reason I could be qualified to talk a little bit about investment.
Fantastic. Well, why don't we start with you, Daniela, given that, because one of the things that every company I've ever met that's looking for investment wants to know is, what is an investor looking for? You know, what are the attributes or things that you look for when you're deciding to invest in a company?
I mean, I always said the person that's healthily obsessed with an idea, just in which but it has to be one's life's work. It has to be bigger than themselves. It has to have global sort of relevance and not be jumping on another bandwagon that someone else has already proven. So the best, and New Zealand has done some really outsized sort of projects that turn out to shape the world in the way in which they have developed. Obviously the LanzaTech, Rocket Lab, PushPay, Crimson, they're all unique niches that have developed and just grown in ways that no one else would have anticipated, or no one prescribed that pathway for them. Their growth was not in a spreadsheet or anywhere. It was just in a founder that was healthily obsessed until they got to that world stage. So I think that's what it takes. It's just somebody being, and then having the right mentorship around, and obviously that virtuous cycle of finding the right mentors, growing, proving the milestones, gaining traction, and then getting investors on board that will continue to support and validate. Especially private sector is quite harsh in dishing out money, so they need to be sure that what you're doing is
the right thing.
Is the right thing.
Yeah.
But I think the New Zealand, as everywhere else, for that matter, has been has seen such ups and downs in the investment space in the last, well, in the last 40 years for sure, that it's a little bit hard to understand what's due to luck and what's due to bad luck.
I think that's called venture capital, isn't it?
The market tides would, like if you're swimming up against the tide, you just better go and just freeze it for a while.
Yeah.
So,
Anyone else want to make a comment? What are you looking at? I mean, we've got a few other investors. We've got W&T Ventures. We've got you, Lee. What do you look for, Lee, when you're looking at investments?
Our VC fund is very much focused on day one founders and startups. But obviously we have a system put in place to realise that only a few percent are going to make it. So you cast a wide net. But that's our focus. It's day one. It's not Series A. It's not Series B and C. So it's like you said. It's just a good idea. It's a good founder. Like everything is a good founder.
Yeah, yeah. And W&T, like you mentioned earlier, Neve, you've done deep tech, so you're at a whole nother layer of investment risk potential. What are you looking for?
Well, some of the same fundamentals, like passion, is something that when you're talking to a founder, they've got to really truly believe in what they're doing and understand the market and what they're going after with a passion that no one else has. But then also, and some of it speaks to having those mentors around you. When we're building deep tech companies, you're going to need quite a lot of mentorship, and you've got to be open to that coaching and knowing that you don't know everything, and that's okay. But also that there's loads of support and resources that can be brought around you. And so being open to feedback and to someone challenging you is really important so that you can build the best company and be the best at what you do.
Yeah. Go, Olivia. You've
I
got
think,
a comment here.
yeah, something that's often said is looking for that 10,000 hours of experience. So it's that depth of knowledge in a certain industry. So an interesting example that's someone that's here tonight, actually, Richard Martin. So Richard's a founder that I'm working with at the moment. He's based here in Taranaki. This is what's interesting about what he's doing. He's working in funeral tech. So it's an area that's ripe for disruption, someone with a deep expertise of knowledge. So it's seeing that opportunity, right? It's that market that's very traditional and ripe for disruption. So yeah, so that's what the magic combo is, like not just a founder who has what it takes to make it, but also that deep industry knowledge and disruption, perfect combination.
And a market size that looks attractive. And
yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. So I mean, clearly you're a founder. You are definitely passionate about your business. We've talked on the quick advertisement now, Power Up podcast. Very, very good.
Great podcast.
Great podcast. Probably the highlight of my life was talking to Elliot about Throughline and the passion. How do you, as a founder, I suppose, how do you think about that, portraying that passion, telling your story in such a passionate way, or has it just come naturally?
I like to call it a narrative distortion field that you just have to project about you. No, I mean, I think part of it's natural and part of it's learned. So, I mean, from any person has natural inclinations for what they might be good at. For me, growing up, I talked a lot, and when I went to the doctor, they would, check my ears, and I'd say the problems with my mouth. And so, from that side, I lean on that. But then the other side is that, learning how to augment a natural skill that you might have, and how that can be improved over time. So say for example, for me, Aristotle's appeals, logos, ethos, pathos. I'm like, if I'm writing a pitch deck, every single line has to tick one of those, because I know that the person I'm talking to either cares about my credibility, they care about the reason behind what I'm doing and the logic behind it, or they care about the emotions. And I'm like, that's a skill I can learn. And I think that's something when it comes to being a founder, or if you're early stage, you're looking to raise investment, there needs to be more support around founders to actually how do you improve on the skills that you already have, so you're kind of, punching above your weight.
By the way, didn't think we'd get Aristotle quoted, but well done. Aristotle and...
He's from Taranaki, actually.
Yeah. Apparently he runs the Midhurst chip shop. Yeah, it's really good. But that idea, and you have mentioned it earlier, Olivia, so maybe we should talk about that, about getting companies investment ready, investable, teaching them the skills. Can you talk us a little bit about what that's like?
Yeah, so it's been quite an interesting journey, sort of developing training to get founders, we call it investable. So, and sort of navigating that pathway of sort of how do you go from an idea to actually a company or an idea that's ready to be invested in. So that's a really key part of building that ecosystem, getting founders ready to raise capital, but there's also the other part is getting investors capability improved as well. So a lot of people want to learn about angel investing, they don't know where to start. And so, so it's kind of that too, that educational, when you're building capability, it's not just founder capability on the journey, it's investor capability as well. Yeah. So when you get both of that, that's when you get great things happening.
That's cool. And Daniela, you mentioned earlier you were part of the angel communities in the past. Can you tell us a bit about your experience there?
Yeah, I was part of Ice Angels in Auckland, and that had the benefit of scale, had the benefit of having had 7 years of building towards that scale. I think prior to the pandemic, there was actually a really nice momentum of co-syndicating a number of deals with regions, and the angel communities and networks in the regions were stronger and probably a lot more active, a lot more engaged, because that's what you need, part of your pitch or your presentation, Olivia, around the difficulty of keeping angels engaged when you don't have a sustained pipeline that shows up or that you can curate to have an investment evening every month that has 3 or 4 interesting opportunities in front of them. So in this kind of game, the market trend of investment being available because of interest rates and everything else, and scale makes a big difference. So I think at the angel level, it's really hard to engineer that if you don't have those 2 elements. At the VC level is very different because it's money that's been raised from LPs, and it has a different cadence of being distributed. But when you, as an angel, when you invest your own money and you've had a portfolio that maybe hasn't seen any exits, and now the valuations have taken a tumble, you're going to be a little bit seasonal and just kind of come in and out of the space and just watch it differently. But I think, just back to Taranaki, if I may, this region has such fantastic natural resources and so many the reorientation of energy that Emilia was talking about, the whole new energy opportunity here, I think, is phenomenal. It's disproportionately, it's an unfair advantage to the rest of the country. And it would be fantastic, not because I'm working for Taranaki, but I'm biased because I see a lot of energy innovation through the work we do there. It'd be fantastic to see startups or ideas that are rooted in the need to solve energy with the renewable sources, with the natural resources that exist here, and then tap into, at first, when the market conditions are tricky, into the non-dilutive funding that exists from the local government, from Venture Taranaki, from Arake, from other entities that are there to support this kind of traction and growth, and then go in front of private investors once you've made a little bit of a gain momentum. So it feels like that's a conversation that's worth its own topic on its own, but that's where, when markets are tough for VC or private investing, tapping into the government support for non-dilutive funding to advance is just as good.
Yeah.
And it's something kind of building on that for talking about Taranaki and as a region and kind of as a focusing on that energy sector. Thinking about this session, one of the things that brought me back to was when I was up in Asia and seeing Singapore, which became a massive fintech hub. You probably were there through some of that back in 2014, 2015. And they created such momentum around it, but they brought in global startups and brought them to the region as well. And like, if you see more and more of this happening, it creates more momentum, and so it can sometimes it's about opening the doors to all regions, to having a global mindset as well, I think, in thinking about how you can build that momentum in the region. It's just...
That's a really good point.
And just talking about like unlocking investment just at an angel level, anybody can be an angel and you don't have to spend that much, but it's such an impactful way to support the regions and to support innovation is to have a go at supporting someone who you want to back. And I think that if more people took that mentality instead of going for just conservative, traditional investment options, if you put a small amount of your portfolio towards innovation, I mean, it's so rewarding, and just it's such a great energy that you get from seeing these founders and helping them with their wins and supporting them through. So I think that if everybody who was able to took a punt on someone that they believed in an area that they're passionate about, our nation could be great, and especially the regions.
Don't buy that investment property, invest in a business. Exactly. James, have you taken capital into your business? Oh, sorry, not Elliot. Sorry, have you taken capital into the business?
Yeah, we've raised, yes.
How was that experience for you? What sort of level was it? Angel?
We raised a pre-seed round. So we raised about 1.4 million New Zealand with led by Blackbird Ventures, and then with some other VCs here in New Zealand and Australia. I mean, it was actually really windy journey for me, probably quite different to lots of other journeys where the work that we've done, I actually started as a non-profit, and it was through the period of doing the StartMate Accelerator that I made the decision to spin that out from being a non-profit to being a company. And so even just the legal switch was complicated. And I think probably one of the other kind of key things for me was just like learning about like what are the types of VCs that I should be prospecting. We, I guess, are like a social impact company. We help people that are struggling with their mental health. And so, that meant I was like prospecting impact VCs, I talked to some family offices. And then I think one of the things that I think most founders who have raised will tell you is that it feels like you're raising and you're having dozens of meetings and it's just like no, and you're like, okay, I should give up. And then someone says yes, and then as soon as someone says yes, everyone else says yes. And that was our experience where I was like, went from raising like this kind of small round that was going to keep me on Midhurst chips for the next 18 months. To like raising a much healthier round, and that was because we had a VC come to the table that brought some belief, and then directly after that, I had VCs who had like given me a flat no,
who I won't name, but VCs would give me a flat no, prominent VCs, who then came back and were like, "Hey, we're now kind of interested," because
someone else is
because just so much of it's trust. And so I think, in those times, like as a founder, you just need other people that are around you that are just kind of like telling you to keep going. Because any founder's got stories like that. Like we don't do this because it's easy, man.
I always say that you're by definition not rational people. Because if you were, you'd go and get a job somewhere. But you're not. And thank God you aren't, because we need people like you who are irrational, because that's what changes things. Nice. Lee, you've been around investing a bit, and you've been around companies a bit. What do you think it takes to be successful on both sides?
Oh, God.
I would like to know that as well, actually.
No, just listen to what you said then. I was just thinking back to being about 19 or 20. We raised our first $500,000 and built a ticketing company, and subsequently pissed most of it up against the wall and ended up in a spot of bother. And, and we all thought we were going to be millionaires at an early age and celebrated too soon, and it all turned to crap. But we learned so much from that. And myself and my partners at the time, we went our separate ways, and we went in and out of other startups. And a bunch of us have come back together at Paloma with like a world of knowledge, about raising, what successful exits look like, what unsuccessful exits look like. And I don't know, I feel like you could make one of those Netflix sort of true crime docos in a way, like about some of it. But yeah, I don't know, it's a hard question. I think just thinking about it now, like what you guys were saying with how we've seen this VCs get scared off in so many ways, and people are struggling to raise capital. But there's just, what we found is there's actually this whole new world of excitement, and the really clever ideas and the smart people, because we've got a serious vetting process now, which we've learnt. A good idea is great, but people are everything. So learn the mistakes along the way, vet well, and invest in people, but also invest in people that have that 10,000 hours and that experience and all of that. But yeah, it's hard to sum up.
Nice. Very good.
Hard to sum up simply.
Got time for questions from the audience, maybe one or two. If you've got anyone out there has a question, down the back here again.
How about regional partnerships? How about the Queenstown?
There we go.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done in the regions, and so I've been actively lobbying with government to get more regional support, because I firmly believe that if we really activate the centres and have these people that are connecting the dots and getting these founders connecting, building investor capability, that will be transformative for our country. And so at the moment there's a bit of a focus on the city centres, the main centres, and I like to say that talent is dispersed evenly, but opportunity is not. So we need to start recognising that we've got talent in the regions, it's everywhere, and we actually need to be fostering and helping that talent stay in their hometown and really developing that, so getting the focus away from just the city centres. And so I think we will get there. It's been quite a journey advocating for that, but it's getting there.
And Olivia, just to jump in on that, I think Hemi touched on it before at the school. Having that actual real world, experienced people coming into the schools. This happened to me at high school, and it really set me on the path for my life. More of that is crucial.
I've seen that a bit in other regions too, where experienced entrepreneurs or founders, actually dedicate a few hours of their month, doesn't have to be massive, to go into the business studies class or the economics class and just talk to the kids. Don't have to prepare, it's not hard. But it's life-changing.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, I always like to say, you can't be what you don't see. So, I had no idea that tech was a viable option for me as a kid. I ended up studying law, which was really boring, and then I discovered this amazing world of tech. And so it's sort of, but it was by accident. So what I'd love to see is kids actually seeing that all the different types of careers, that you do not have to be maths or science to work in tech. You can do, there's so many different,
different ways.
Yeah.
I know I've got a question over here.
Kia ora, Alana Rukiri, CEO of Tuiora. In the sort of post-settlement environment, particularly in Taranaki, where most of our iwi have settled, and some of them are potentially significant investors, what is the bridge that can be built to those new investors on the block? Because most of them are heading offshore at the moment to investigate the world and the opportunities and the knowledge that exists. So what is the bridge that can be built with a new kind of investor?
It just comes back to that building investor capability. So it comes to education, and there's a huge part with that. You know, at the moment, the finance community and the investor community is quite difficult to get into. But like I said, like anybody can invest, and so what I'd love to see is more of that educational part and building investor capability. So that's the pathway. It's like literacy, right? It's learning. It comes down to an educational part, and it's a really, really important aspect of unlocking capital and creating opportunities for everybody, especially women as well. Like women traditionally, like there's some brilliant professional women that I know, and they feel excluded from learning about finance. They're brilliant women, and so they're saying, how can I learn? How women actually control a huge amount of capital when you look at it, and it comes back to literacy, financial literacy, and educational opportunities. So the more we can do that, we can unlock capital to support these amazing founders.
Yeah, no, just on that, I haven't been at school for many years, but we weren't taught anything about entrepreneurship at school, and I don't know if that's changed, but it's got to start. It's got to start there.
Some great programs now, Young Enterprise, eh?
Yeah.
Shout out to the Young Enterprise team. But on the point about post-settlement iwi and investment, and we've got Josh here as well, who's much more versed in this than I am, Josh Hitchcock. But the good thing about investment is that you do have sidecars and you have models where people can co-invest, and to the point about kind of collaboration. Someone might lead an investment round and allow others to come in and through that, learn the process, but also benefit hopefully from the outcome. So that's, maybe go to WNT, you might have done that sort of thing before.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things where collaboration is a big part of it. And what we like to do is actually bring in our limited partners, people who are making that first step into investing and bring them on the journey, and then they get an opportunity to co-invest with us. Alongside in our investments. So we'll typically lead and sort of set the terms so people understand we'll take an active role in the company as well. So there's a certain stewardship that we have around it. Currently we're actively out actually looking to go to the regions and bring new limited partners into our next fund. So definitely keen to see how we can collaborate.
Oh, look, if she's advertising, I will too. I chair the Ice House, and I know we've got 2 or 3 funds open at the moment too, and we're always looking for LPs. But we collaborate, very closely as well. Any final questions?
I was just going to add one other thing to I think we are on a journey where both the Western business models and the iwi models towards what's a sustainable investment, and the horizons they have not yet merged. So in a way, both parties have to continue to walk towards each other and find that common ground, because I think 4 years ago, putting a Western business case in front of a iwi would have not flown at all. It just missed about 7 out of 10 points of consideration so it feels like we're getting there, but we're not there fully yet. So once we...
And you might be looking at more like a PE type model than a VC model, because, longer term, maybe the deep tech is probably a better, than many of the other things which are looking for short turnaround exits, etc. Yeah. Any final questions in the space?
Work with Feature Taranaki and Massey University in that space of people who often have a startup, a good idea, and we're trying to help. And I have to say that at the start of the journey at the moment, there is a real restriction around any non-dilutive co-funding for things. So a lot of people are kind of faced with a good idea, and they'll only be able to do what they can do with their very limited funds. So there's a real paucity of support now at the front end. And Callaghan Innovation, sorry if anyone in here is a good supporter of them, as we are, and a real beneficiary of their services, but they've been shutting the door progressively on what they have available to support that early stage. And we often find that a lot of people are also very averse to the idea of anyone else having any opportunity to share in their business. They've almost got a mindset where they'd rather have 100% of nothing than 80% of something huge. So I'm just interested in your experience with those kind of organisations. Great ideas, but that challenge in getting any sort of non-dilutive funding at the front end and a mindset around it.
Founder mindset is extremely important. That's actually in the modules that I was talking about earlier. It's always lesson 1. And it's actually your mindset. So it's all about taking the right mentality, not having limiting beliefs on what you're able to achieve, and having a growth mindset of sort of how you can unlock your idea to make it a reality. And so what you're talking about, that sort of, you see that quite often with people that don't want to share their idea because they think someone's going to steal it, or they don't want to dilute their equity because they think they'll lose control. But that's all mindset stuff, right? So you need, like, it's when you have that growth mindset for founders, they can have, like, it's a lot better to have a piece of a bigger pie than all of a tiny little pie that's not, yeah, so it's kind of, so that's the mindset training for founders, hugely, hugely important.
Have you run things that help do that?
Yeah, so that was part of the sessions that we do. So, yeah, so literally the first session we do for both the introduction one and the mid-level one is mindset, and sort of, do you have the right approach to, as addressing it, it's called like limiting beliefs and how you overcome it and how you overcome fear, because that's what's holding everybody back from innovation. It always comes down to fear, and so how do you talk people into actually taking that leap? And that's key.
Did you want to add something, Neve?
Yeah, just that there are definitely some tools out there to help that, and even in the Power Up program, I think one of the first sessions, it is visualizing where you want to take this, and like literally drawing a picture of yourself and then talking that through with them. If that's where you want to be, then how are you going to get there? And they can kind of see then. But the other part of it is, anytime you're taking investment from anyone or bringing someone in with you, it's about a trusted partnership. And so they've got to encourage them to get out there and talk to people and meet people, because that's when they'll find someone who also has that same passion. And that's where they'll find potentially that person they're willing to go on that journey. And that might be an investor, it might be a friend from down the road, or it might be a company that wants to work with them or something. But it's having that open mindset as well is really important.
And that resilience as well, like what you're talking about, hearing 1,000 no's and not getting disheartened. Because it's really like the whole thing, what's great fun about entrepreneurship is you have the highest highs and the lowest lows, but it all comes down to that resilience. And there's a good book called Grit, actually, about having that grit to stay through. And that is the most important thing for a founder. The number one attribute for successful founders is having grit and resilience to see through adversity.
Exactly right. Elliot, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think, like, speaking from the perspective of a founder, there's a component of this stuff that's almost just like understanding how the thing works. You know, like I came from the non-profit, so like how venture businesses work was just completely foreign to me. So what that means is that, 2 years ago, would have been sitting in, a seat like everyone here's sitting, like listening to these words spat out and being like, I don't even know what they're talking about.
What is an
like,
LP?
what do they mean by non-dilutive?
They mean free money. Actually.
Yeah, like, just not, and it's just because it's a scene, it's just like any scene. And so it's got codes and so I think there's a component where, like, if you've got a great idea, like, and you want to take that idea to the next stage, then you also kind of need to understand, like, the picture or have a model of what that pathway looks like. And if it hasn't been modeled to you, you're just not going to know. And we can't blame people for that. And so I think there needs to be the more, like, humble stance of people that have a little bit of that knowledge to kind of go, hey, this is actually how the system kind of works.
Yeah.
Because that's been a big learning for me, is to just go like, oh, this is kind of how the system works, and now I can, you can
play. You can
I
be
can
part of it.
throw the words around and things.
Because I'm conscious of time, I'm going to leave it there because I think that's a really good place to leave it. And it goes right back to what Olivia was saying at the beginning in terms of connecting the ecosystem together and having that catalyst in the middle that does help everyone understand how the system works and then kind of helps the system work a little bit better as well. So can you please join me, thank the panel for their wise words. Awesome. And with that, we're finishing up. I will just love to say, look, don't let this be the last conversation like this. This is Tech Week, so it created a focal point for us to come together. And thank you to Natasha and the team from Venture Taranaki for making us all come together. But please don't let this be that last conversation, because there is something that you can really do here. And you've got, from what we saw earlier from Olivia, really patterns that we can follow and great ideas that we can build on. We're already doing some great stuff. Things like the Power Up program are fantastic. I wanted to say thank you to VT, thank you to Puki Ariki and Tech Week, who put on these series of events. There's about 300 or 400 events around the country during this week. So we're lucky that we've got VT here, Venture Taranaki, who are the local kind of coordinator for those events. It is a really special thing to have an EDA in a city. Olivia will tell you that if you grab her for 5 minutes. Like the value they add is behind the scenes catalysing things. Are you voting? Oh, good. Oh, EDA is an Economic Development Agency or Regional Development Agency, RDA. So basically an organisation owned by or controlled by the council on behalf of the people of the region that's looking longer term than sometimes councils might look. And that's what Venture Taranaki is here to do, is to think about what might Taranaki look like in 5 to 10 years' time if the technology sector was really humming, and then how do we get there? So awesome question, thank you. Look, I'll finish this up with a karakia. Please do stick around and do a bit of networking. Love to keep those conversations going. As I say, don't let this be the last time that we have this discussion. So he karakia. Enuhia ki te urutapu nui, kia wātia, kia mama, ki te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, e te ara takatā. Ko ia rā e te rongo ko whakauria ake te runga kia tina. Hui e homi e tae ki e. Pomari, everyone, have a great night. Thank you very much for coming.